Alright, welcome back to another lesson, everyone. And today we are going to be making a mug. And so uses some of the techniques that we use when making the beveled box, but we're going to start out with a cylinder, not a box. So go ahead and remove this and go ahead and add a cylinder to the scene and then move into edit mode. Okay, so we actually don't want, if you notice again, the cylinder is kind of hanging below the XY plane and we want it to be right on the plane. So I'm going just to move it up by grabbing it, clamping it to the Z axis and hitting 1. And so now you see the bottom of our cylinder is right on the XY plane. Now, as we discussed before, and once we start talking about modifiers, this will get really obvious, but for now, just kind of do it as a, this is kind of better. But you don't want these large areas without any vertices. This is fine for this simple thing we have now, but once we start adding modifiers and things, these large areas tend to look kind of wonky. So to fix this, and we're only going to do this on the top or on the bottom, excuse me, because we have other plans for the top. We're going to go ahead and remove this face, and then we're moving to working with edges. We're going to do a loop select on this bottom edge, and we're going to extrude and scale, and extrude and scale, and extrude and scale. And again, this is just adding some geometry. I'll show you with the top face in a sec why we didn't just use subdivide, because you may be thinking that right now. Like, you may be thinking, oh, why don't you just subdivide it? That seems like it'd be a lot faster. And circles are kind of weird. That's kind of the TLDR of this, but okay. And then once you get down to kind of an acceptable size, you can just use our F trick and close out the face. And now we've got something that looks a lot better. So now with the top, maybe, like I said, maybe you're wondering, oh, well, why didn't he just subdivide? So if I try to subdivide this, you notice nothing happened. And the reason is it did subdivide it, but it subdivided along the edge. And so I'm going to go ahead and back up on that. And again, that's just because of the way circles work. They tend to not have very good properties for subdivision. And so this is a much better way to add geometry to a circular surface versus trying to subdivide or do something else kind of funny. Okay, so I said we had other plans for the top, and we do. And so with the top, we're going to delete the top. I lied to you. I'm sorry. So we're going to delete the top and move to working with edges. Loop select this and kind of grab it. And we're going to do an E and S to scale in. You may be thinking, well, this is exactly like what we did at the bottom. But unlike the bottom, we want this to be kind of thinner. So this is going to be the top of our mug. And so we just want to make the lip. And so very similar with what we did with the beveled box, we're going to go to a front view and turn on wireframe and then extrude. Oh, and this time it didn't clamp it. So if it doesn't clamp it, like you see, make sure to hit Z so that we go to the Z axis. We want to drag it down. And I mean, this is kind of really a use your best judgment thing. So the goal here is to, at least for me, is to have the bottom of my cup be about the same as the edges. And so you can see kind of where my edges are. They're right along kind of this. So I'm going to stop at about right there. Again, this is all up to you. This is just, like I said, it's kind of my own thing. And we're still in wireframe just because it's a little bit better to see. I'm going to do kind of the same trick I did with the outside. So ES. And actually, I think if you do a top view, that way we can actually kind of line it up with the outside a little bit. And I am going to go there. And then tap F to make our face. Now, before switching back to solid view. I'm going to go to front, and I'm going to loop select this inside, and we are going to do a bevel. Just a little bit of a bevel. And I'm going to increase to 3. And again, this is just because I kind of mentioned this briefly in my lessons, that, and same thing with the outside, just a tiny bit, that even adding just this little bevel can make things look a little more natural. Okay, so good. Now we've got that taken care of. And so, oops, I did not mean to switch to object mode, and to switch to solid. And so now we've got the inside and the outside of our mug done. We at least have a solid cylinder which would hold liquid. We're going to go ahead and loop select the top, and same thing with the beveled box. We're going to go ahead and bevel that a little bit. There we go. And now we've got the body of our mug done, but, you know, and I mean, maybe if you wanted like a Japanese teacup, this would be good for you. But I'd like to make a handled mug. And so for that, what we're going to do is we're going to add some loop cuts. And to be specific, and right now I'm dragging these around. If you just hit escape, it'll go to the center. I'm going to put 8 cuts. And so you notice that makes almost a perfect square. Okay, and so, I mean, you've got a circular object. I'm going to try to line this up pretty close with the x-axis, but you don't have to feel obligated to do that if you don't want to. Okay, so we're going to, select all 4 of these faces and all 4 of these faces, and I am going to subdivide these 4 faces. And then I am going to select these 4 faces, delete faces. And I could have done that with the, so there is an alternate way you can do that a little bit easier, so let's go ahead and do that. So you can actually just select these 2 points and delete vertices, and it has the same effect, see? So with those gone, we're going to do kind of the same trick we did with the fly swatter handle. So just scale in to make a circle, and then same thing here. Oops. Scale in to make a circle. Okay, and so now we are going to use the spin tool, but we need to do a couple of things first, because there's a couple of ways to make using the tool in this case easier. So you notice we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you want this middle point. Well, actually, notice that I think it has uneven. Yeah, it's uneven. So what we're going to do is we're going to add an extra loop here, just for the time being. And we're going to use our selection, or our cursor menu, and we're going to move the cursor to selected, because if you remember, the spin is based on cursor position. So now I'm going to select, first I'm going to select one of these loops. I'll select the top, and we're going to start a spin. And we're not going to really worry about it too much because we're fixing to change some things. So the first thing we're going to change is, if you notice, the rotation is around Z, and we don't want that. We actually want it to rotate around Y. And so changing that to 1, and you want the Z to be 0. And now you see it's right in line with the other handle hole. And so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to change this. Now you don't want to go all the way to 180 degrees for this, because these holes might not be even, and like I said on our lesson video, they don't actually do anything to prevent you from accidentally merging geometry. And so instead what we're going to do is we're going to change the angle to something really close, like let's try 170. And you want this, like the distance from here to here, to roughly be the distance from there to there. So maybe 165? Yeah, that's close enough. Okay, and so once you're happy with that, we're going to click off that. And so now you may be thinking, okay, well, crud. We're not exactly, like the handle's not connected. We're fixing to fix that. So what you want to do is you want to click one of the vertices on your cup around the hole, and you want to try to find the vertex that's directly across from it on the handle, and you're going to use the F key again. So the F key is it creates an edge or face between some selected geometry, and I'm fixing to show you a really cool trick with it. And so now you're going to do the same thing over here. And so now you're going to switch to edge mode, and actually I don't even think you need that. So with these two edges selected, hit F again, and now it makes a face. And so here's the cool part. So F mode, the F key is kind of smart, and so if you have enough existing geometry, it can kind of figure out what you want to do. And so we have a loop here and a loop here, and we have a face joining them. So now I can just hit F a bunch of times, and it'll make a fully connected ring all the way around. And these vertices are merged. Unlike the spin and some of the other operations we've seen, this does make a fully merged ring. And so now we've got a handle on this. No pun intended. So there is one more thing I kind of want to do with this, and that is to kind of make this ring a little bit prettier. And so the way we're going to do that is we're going to select the middle of our ring and kind of increment up. And you may, oh goodness, I actually think if I remember, we may have to do a face and then increment up. You want everything except for the, you want to try to get everything except for this and this. Yes, just like that. Okay, and we're going to scroll down here to the, it's either the shrink and fatten or push and pull. I can't remember which one I used whenever I was testing this. I think it's the shrink and fatten. And so you don't want to go crazy because you don't want it to look like it's going to break off, but just a tiny bit. And if you really want to, then you can go up to the selection and go to edges, and it may have trouble with that loop now because you get a different amount of subdivide here, so just kind of click around and try scaling that out a little bit. And actually, I think you should be able to, if you select these, maybe better to do that so that they at least look a little more even. Alright, I should have both of those selected now, and so now scale. And very important, so I'll show you guys another trick. So you notice when I scale, they aren't really acting the way that I want them to. And we'll try turning on individual origins, which treats each section separately. There we go. And so you notice now it's actually working the way I want it to. So that's another really useful trick. And so maybe scale that out just a little bit, just so it looks like, like the handle's actually joining to the mug. And so I'll go ahead and switch back to medium point now, which is the default. And so after that, just go into object mode and shade smooth. And yeah, this should look pretty good. There's some stuff that once we start talking about modifiers we can do to make this a little bit better. But I'll save that for that lesson. For now, go ahead and rename your cylinder cup or mug. I'm going to name it mug. And go ahead and use either Control S or Save As to make a mug. Again, I already have one. And we will definitely be using this in later examples as well, just like a lot of our other things. That about wraps it up for now. I hope you enjoyed the exercise, and if you did, please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.